Hey guys, welcome back. Listen, I've been telling you for months that the whales are quietly cornering the memory market. In fact, if you remember at the end of last week, I showed you two NASDAQ closing crosses, one for Micron and one for SanDisk that equaled a $1.2 billion position. Let's call it a $1.2 billion commitment in those companies. So I wasn't surprised by the price action we saw with Micron and SanDisk today. We know that retail investors, they tend to get anxious. They panic over intraday wiggles in any stocks. But what have we been seeing with the whales lately? What have we been seeing with the biggest institutions on earth? They are anchoring their position in the memory sector. They're anchoring their positions in Micron and in SanDisk. Today wasn't a rally. It was Wall Street finally admitting they have been wrong about this sector. Wall Street admitting they are wrong about the cyclicality of the memory players. And when we see D.A. Davidson drop a street high $1,000 price target from Micron at the end of last week, it sends a massive signal through the market that the AI memory cycle is no longer a trade. It is a permanent structural shift. But the real story about today just wasn't about that price target or any price target. It was about the massive rotation we are seeing right now with capital. Because Nvidia is facing a new geopolitical hurdle for their business. And we're seeing the hyperscalers continue to confirm their AI infrastructure build out in all the headlines after their earnings last week. And we had 3 new earnings this week that also confirmed why we should be bullish about the memory players. So today's video, we're going to focus on why we're seeing capital rotate into the memory and storage titans. And I'm going to share with you why I continue to be so bullish about Micron. What are the signs and signals we're seeing in the market right now? And why do I expect we'll continue to see a vertical climb in the months ahead? But if you haven't done it already, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe to the channel. We're trying to pass the 10,000 subscribers by the end of this month. It's a huge goal. We're about 1,500 subscribers away. But if you like the content on this channel, if you've learned something on this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Hit subscribe. I appreciate your guys' time. Let's dive in and talk about one of the biggest signals that we saw today overall. It was a shocker when it hit the headlines overall. But here it is. You can see Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang confirms company has 0 market share in China after export restrictions. He confirms the U.S. export restrictions have reduced the company's China AI chip market share from 95% to 0, calling the policy a strategic backfire, in his opinion. So, guys, this was a huge signal overall. It was a shocker today when I saw it hit the headlines this morning. They admitted that their AI market share in China is officially 0. Just 2 years ago, this company literally owned the market. This is a massive geopolitical deplatforming that is forcing Nvidia to fight for every inch of growth in the West. But here's the insider secret, and what I haven't heard most people say, that while you can block a GPU, you cannot block the global physical need for data storage. This is a reason I stay so bullish on memory and why I think we saw rotation out of the GPU players into the memory sector today. Nvidia faces a regulatory trap in China where its market share, as Jensen mentioned, went from 95 to 0. But China's domestic AI build-out continues unabated. The domestic chips still require the physical necessity of high-density NAND and high-bandwidth memory, which remains a global bottleneck. This shift in the AI stack is exactly why Micron gapped up over 6% today and Nvidia stayed flat in the market. Investors are rotating into the infrastructure layer where the supply is fully sold out through 2026 and price targets are now hitting new levels for all of those memory players. And let's talk about the whale validation that we saw last week. Because I know I talked about in the beginning the NASDAQ closing crosses, but you have to remember we also saw on the tape, like in the middle of the afternoon before the close, there was a $344 million anchor trade for Micron. It was about 2 o'clock on Friday, and it was at the level of $5.35 a share. And if you guys remember, I mentioned how this was going to be an institutional floor for Micron today. What we saw today is Micron gapped up to 576 and it stayed there. That 535 level didn't need to be the floor because we never got back down. The support was there just as I thought it would be at the closing bell on Friday. And it's exactly what I thought we would see on Monday when the market opened. SanDisk followed the same exact playbook. It was up over 5% today at just about 1255. And when we saw those two closing crosses for 1.2 billion, when we saw that at the closing bell on Friday, you don't bet against that type of action. The institutions know that the brains, the GPUs from Nvidia, from AMD and others, they are facing export hurdles. But the storage companies, in a global shortage like we have right now through the 2027-28 timeframe, these are the companies to bet on. So let's look at the charts. Let's take a look at what the memory titans did today overall. And then I want to dive into some more metrics from Micron to show you why I continue to be bullish. All right, let's jump over and first start with SanDisk and what we saw from the company today. And guys, you can see on the screen that SanDisk had a strong day. It was up $69 today, over almost a 6% growth. Look at it, it's where it's closed, 1256.02. If we look to the right, it got to about 1275 today. It's down a little bit in the after hours, under 1%, $10 back, but it is a massive move that it had today. And it wasn't that long ago. Maybe 2 weeks ago, we were talking about, will SanDisk break the $1,000 level? It's not only broken through there, it is setting new goals. We know the price target for SanDisk, the most price targets are now in the 1,800, 2,000 range for this company. So massive move today on the market as well. Let's jump over and take a look at Micron. What did we see with Micron? Micron had a strong day, over 6% growth, 576.45. If you look to the right, it got over 592 a share today, pushing towards that 600 mark. You guys know I've been saying for a while on this channel, my end of the year price target for Micron was 550. It looks like I'm going to have to do some reevaluating of my own price targets because I've been way too conservative on this company. But 576, 592 was the high today, putting a little more on the after hours. Another 254 you can see, trading at about 579 right now. You see the stock had a great day today. It is pushing towards that blue sky scenario that we have, particularly when it gets reinforced by D.A. Davidson's $1,000 price target. And I want to jump over and just take a look at some of the bullish metrics. First, let's take a look at the flow of the day for Micron. And you can see where it jumped. Guys, you can see where we closed on Friday. And it actually at the time was a nice bullish close. It gave us a sentiment that we were tracking into the weekend in a strong position with this stock. But if you look where it opened up on Monday and look at that kind of ascending staircase all the way up to 592 right here where we hit. The nice part of that is you didn't see any kind of, sell the news, any kind of profit taking really. You saw this, right at the opening bell, we had that massive gap up. It really tested, it was a true valuation reset, I would say, for the stock as it jumped right up to 592 within the first probably hour of trading. And after that massive gap up, we saw this sideways digestion through the afternoon. You can see it all through here. The beauty of this piece and what I feel like why this is so strong or such a bullish sign for the stock is after hitting that high of 592, we spent the afternoon in this tight range between 576 and 586. This time-based correction, it allowed the RSI to cool off. If you can see down below where the RSI was in the morning, it got into this overextended period. We were up in the, in the mid 80s. So this sideways digestion of this consolidation we saw through the day allowed the RSI to cool off and catch up. It allowed the moving averages to catch up as well. This consolidating at the literal top of a massive move is a sign of extreme strength. It proves that the whales are holding for a much larger expansion. And then we look down, the last piece is these final candles at the end, these kind of red candles. You see a little bit of red volume bars at the end. And you can interpret this as a bearish sign, but that's not the way I interpret it. I wouldn't be fooled by these red volume bars at the finish. This wasn't selling, in my opinion. I'm going to show you the NASDAQ closing cross in a moment, but there was almost $1 billion closing cross from Micron today. It was a massive institutional order fill. Nearly $1 billion changed hands right at the daily high without the price collapsing, confirming that the demand is perfectly absorbing supply. So let's jump over and take a look at that closing cross. You can see it right here. I'm highlighting it on the screen right at about $982 million, almost $1 billion, 1.7 million shares crossed hands right at the 576.45 level. Take a look at another 65 million in shares right here at the 401, right in the 401 mark, all kind of closing at the 580.87. So this is a strong sign for the stock going in. We're not seeing any kind of sell the news, any profit taking that's happening right now. It's really giving an indication that the institutional investors are very comfortable with this. We're seeing this after hours absorption. That's 65 million in additional dark pool trades. If you look to the far right, you can see all of this happen in the dark pool. Hitting at that 580 level is a strong sign that institutions are literally paying a premium to secure their positions after the bell. And you got to remember, we also saw aggressive support throughout the day. There were consistent whale prints today. If you look down below, you can see a whale print at the 144 and the 255 level. So right here, 144 level, it's almost 350 million came across at 577.86. And then the 255 level, we also saw another 230 million come across at 576. You also see one here at 209 at 574. So we're seeing massive institutional orders, massive whale orders showing support, demonstrating that the big money, every time it got near the 576, 577 level, they defended it. Every time it tested that level, they stepped in and defended it with a massive order. That's not the only piece why I remain bullish for Micron. Let's jump over and take a look at some of the option trades. And guys, what I want to just tell you in kind of at a very high level is we are seeing that our massive whales are betting on 2028 now with Micron. The institutions are starting to buy time like that. They're not trading. They're positioning for a structural shift in the time. Let me give you an example. We have two massive targets here. We have one for January 2028 and one for December. Right here, to December 27 next year, you have a call for 1,060 strike price. Down below, you also have a call down here for January 28 for 1,090 strike price. And then I want to draw your attention to this one. No, let me see where it is. It's this one right here. This year, June of this year, a massive call order, for $800 strike price for a share from Micron. Guys, this is a huge shine. This, the first two ones align perfectly with the D.A. Davidson price target of 1,000. That aligns perfectly with that super cycle narrative for Micron. But then when you see that target of 800 for June of this year, when you're buying an 800 for a stock that is still under the $600 level, and you're buying it in a couple month time frame, it suggests that the whales are expecting a rapid vertical move with Micron. Like I said, they're not betting on next week, the whales right now. They're betting on 2028, and they're betting massively with huge options flow, huge calls that are all aligned with that D.A. Davidson price target of 1,000 a share. So those are the reasons why I continue to stay massively bullish on Micron for what we're seeing in the flows, what the signals are. I tell you all the time, avoid the noise. Remove the noise from the market and purely look at the signals and how the stock is being traded. The verdict for today was overwhelmingly bullish. The 576 closing price is a coiled spring for Micron. By holding this level despite overbought conditions, Micron has established this level as the new institutional floor. The whales are signaling they expect to pay significantly more tomorrow morning to get into the game with Micron. And to understand why the memory sector continues to decouple from the rest of tech, we have to look at some of the hard numbers from today's earning trifecta. We had three companies drop earnings that are heavily invested in the infrastructure build out. We had Palantir, Vertiv Holdings, and On Semiconductor. These reports just didn't beat. They provided a roadmap for the massive capital expenditure currently flooding into the physical infrastructure layer. Let's first start with Vertiv. Vertiv's 44% organic revenue growth in the Americas may be the single most important metric for us memory investors. It proves that the data centers are not just being planned, they are physically built at a record pace. More importantly, Vertiv raised their full-year operating margin guidance, confirming that the infrastructure giants, the hyperscalers, are in fact price elastic. They are paying a premium for cooling in these data centers, which is a direct prerequisite for the high-density SanDisk enterprise SSDs and the Micron high-bandwidth memory modules that generate the most heat. And then if we look at Palantir, they reported a staggering 133% year-over-year increase in U.S. commercial revenue. While the market focuses on software, the financial reality is that Palantir's artificial intelligence platform, their AIP, requires massive data in-memory capabilities to function. Every dollar of Palantir's growth represents a physical demand for the low-latency DRAM and NAND that the memory titans supply or they supply to support these complex AI workloads. And finally, on semiconductor, they climbed to a 52-week high today, and it was fueled by the dominance in the AI power efficiency pipeline. Their report highlighted that as AI models move from training to inference, the demand for efficient power delivery becomes critical. The market is rewarding the physical efficiency titans who can do more with less power, and that also fits exactly into Micron's playbook. Investors should feel bullish about these signs because the common thread across all of these reports that we saw today were operating leverage. Vertiv raises margins and Palantir secures revenues faster than cost. It confirms that the AI build-out has moved past the speculative phase and into the deployment phase. For memory investors, this is the ultimate green light that we want to see. It means that the billions in CapEx from Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and Google are flowing directly into the physical components, flowing into the storage, the power, and the memory that makes these systems possible. The combination of the $982 million closing cross, the premium pricing that we're seeing in the dark pools in the after hours right now, and those $1,000 2028 calls, it all shows and confirms to us today that the 6% move from Micron was not a retail pumping event. This was a structural institutional repricing of the stock. And given that that we're seeing $580 strike prices right now in the dark pools, I would expect to see a potential gap up or at least immediate strength at the opening bell from Micron as the market attempts to catch up to the new institutional price floor that's been established in the after hours. Today proves that if you follow the volume, if you follow the flows and look at how the whales are moving, and you stay focused on where the physical constraints are in the AI infrastructure build out, you can stay ahead of the analysts. So don't get distracted by the noise in the market. Don't get distracted by the intraday wiggles. Make sure you continue to look at the signals and trust the fundamentals. Guys, today was another strong day for memory overall. Let's make it another one tomorrow. I'll see you in the next video. Drop a comment below. Let me know how you felt about today's movement. What were your takeaways? And I look forward to engaging with each and every one of you. Have a great night. Take care.